This operation is taking place now after about 2 years of waiting to reconquer the last ISIS stronghold in northern Iraq. Mosul is a huge city. It used to be home, I think, to 2.5 million people, Iraq's second largest city. After ISIS took it over, a lot of those people became refugees, especially the minority communities that were persecuted, like Christians and Yazidis. So Mosul is really the capital of ISIS in Iraq, and this is the last major, massive operation that will retake the city and will expel ISIS from Iraq, and then basically, as you know, ISIS will just be in Syria, in Raqqa.
Is it going to be a bloodbath?
ISIS has said, this will be some huge, massive slaughterhouse, and you'll all be welcome to your deaths. And, as we've seen in other ISIS operations, ISIS laces areas with burning oil wells, and they have IEDs everywhere. When I was there, we went down in tunnels that ISIS had built, and we saw like a lot of the improvised explosive device TNT infrastructure that they have. But the fact is, ISIS has been severely degraded. They don't have a lot of fighters left. So they may have all sorts of like little bombs and all sorts of things, the kind of things Israel has encountered with Hamas or Hezbollah. But the question is whether or not the civilian population in Mosul will be used as like human shields, and whether large numbers of those people will be killed. But I think when we see what the Iraqi army did in Fallujah and Ramadi, large sections of those cities were destroyed, but tens of thousands of people didn't die. Most of the people actually are able to escape. So I tend to not think there will be a huge bloodbath. There may be a lot of epic destruction to property and things like that.
Well, describe for me, please, what's in it for the Kurds? What's their motivation?
The Kurds, they bore the brunt of this ISIS attack in August 2014. They've lost thousands of people. And look, the Kurds have an interest in Mosul because there are Kurds that used to live in Mosul. And it's always been kind of on the border between what the Kurdish region and obviously the Arab region. And as you probably recall, during Saddam Hussein's time, Mosul and those areas were heavily Arabized by Saddam sending in Arabs and collectivizing all the other little villages around it of minority communities. Some of these minority communities, like they speak Kurdish, like some of the Kakai or Yazidis. So I think the Kurds would like to have influence over Mosul. And I think we have to understand that in 2004 and 2008, during the American occupation, Mosul was a center of jihadist extremist activity. So the Kurds, every time there's extremism in Mosul, all of that weight falls on Kurdistan. Kurds get killed in suicide bombings, Kurds get murdered, Kurds get assassinated. So the Kurds want Mosul to be a peaceful city, not a city that's a kind of endless cyclical threat.
What's the motivation behind this operation? Is it to defeat ISIS, or is it to make Iraq whole again?
Well, I think from the Iraqi central government's perspective, yes, it's to make Iraq whole again. Mosul's a part of Iraq. You can't just have a city that's alienated from you, like in Israel or America. You wouldn't say, well, we'll just allow Houston, Texas to sort of be its own thing. So, of course, you have to take back that area and put your boots on the ground. The motivation is then, the question is, okay, so what do they want next? They want to defeat ISIS. Obviously, from the perspective of the government, ISIS, beheaded 1,000 cadets, mostly Shia, in Camp Speicher in 2014. Like, these are serious war crimes, and ISIS has to pay for them. So there's a desire for revenge. I think from the Kurdish perspective, it's less clear what the defeat of ISIS necessarily gets them, because they don't want to sacrifice lives for Mosul. And then they're like, okay, but then what happens next? So there's some uncertainty, I think, from their perspective, is, okay, what does that mean now that Mosul's back in the central government's hands?
Is this operation going to defeat ISIS?
No, Mosul won't destroy ISIS. ISIS will exist in Syria. And then when ISIS is defeated, there will be ISIS cells all over the world, just like there used to be Al-Qaeda cells. And ISIS will become some new, just like Al-Qaeda became something new like ISIS, these jihadists will find some new imprimatur, and we're going to live with groups like ISIS.